Your films, I could see, they deal with culture, they deal with leadership, and they deal with geopolitics. But all of them, like our program, is centered around power. Apparently you're fascinated with power.
Yeah. Well, I studied power at Hill School, a boarding school. I went to Yale. We were supposed to be, that's what education was for, was to acquire power so that you could move in the world. That was what young men were taught in those days.
Well, certainly your medium and your movies are very powerful.
Thank you. I made movies about strong people. I'm fascinated by it. I'm also fascinated by crime, and as you can see from the movies. And I also, you can talk money, crime, politics,
but with power
Wall Street.
But with power comes responsibility. And some of your films about Nixon, Kennedy, W. Bush are problematic for some of us who deal with documents and facts and so on, because you have it both ways. If a historian is not convenient, you say you're an artist.
Now listen, I never said that. I always said I'm doing a historical drama. I'm a historical dramatist.
So you have it both ways.
I am telling a story. I never said that JFK was a documentary. I never said that.
No, you said it's myth contra myth.
I said it was a counter myth to the Warren Commission myth. I did a lot of research. I put out a book of footnotes of all what we did, but I never crossed the line and said I'm a historian. Never.
But Oliver,
some people call me a cinematic historian. Let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say to you, I crossed the line now when I did Untold History of the United States. We spent 5 years on this project.
I want to get to that, by the way.
Peter Kuznick and myself, he's a historian
Yeah.
at American University. We went into the world in 2008 when Bush was in his second term. We had enough. We decided I'm not going to do any more movies about politics. I'm going to do a documentary about my lifetime from 1940s to now. That became the Untold History of the United States. That was fact-checked by Showtime, by CBS, and by ourselves. I mean, this was quite a job. So I know the line.
I will tell you, despite all the critique, I think people around the world needs to watch this 10-part series of the Untold History.
Why? Tell me why.
Now, having said that, because it is to a large degree in the mainstream, it's untold. People don't know that. But still, even that, it has the construct of a Hollywood director. It has a construct of good and bad. It has a construct of Wallace versus Truman. It has this story narrative, but history is more than story.
Well, there's gray areas, but I do believe that Wallace, on the scale of veers to the good,
was better than Truman.
I think that Truman veers to the middle and bad.
But certainly history is more complex, as you also tell it, than Truman.
I'm sorry. There is a difference. There are moments in history that change things. Wallace was such a moment in 1944.
You mean his loss?
When Stalin died in 1953, Eisenhower had a choice. He was a new president. He was coming in. He was a man of peace. He was regarded as a wise man. He chose to refuse the new offer of the Soviet leaders for peace. He took a hard line against communism because of Dulles, his Secretary of State. Dulles called communism immoral, evil. He was the one who started that dialogue.
Yes, yes.
Kennedy in 1960 was a change. Although he starts out as a Cold Warrior and as a liberal, he definitely changes. He refuses to go into the Bay of Pigs. He refuses to strike Cuba during the nuclear missile crisis. That was a huge decision.
But all that is untold history.
He refuses to go into Laos. He refuses to send combat troops into Vietnam. Kennedy is killed, and then you see it shift. So don't tell me there's no difference between Lyndon Johnson, John Kennedy, and between Wallace and Truman.
I'm not saying there isn't, but you are reducing history to good and bad.
No, I'm not.
Because it's storytelling.
No, I'm not. In each chapter, we discuss the decisions that are being made. We try to show you the degrees of subtlety. There's a lot of subtlety in the series.
So this is your documentary, your dramas. You agree with me that most people in the world now know the history of George W. Bush and that of the likes of Nixon through Oliver Stone drama
I hope
than
so.
through history books.
My history is a lot better than what we're getting in schools. I'll tell you that.
But that's a problem. You said, I think, or
That's
someone
not a
said,
problem. That's a solution.
12% of high schoolers don't know their history in
American
America.
history is depressing because you know what? It's sanitized Disney version of history. It's like,
but yours is Hollywood.
America, it's a what they call a triumphalist narrative. The U.S. always wins. The U.S. is good. The U.S. can do no harm. We dropped the atomic bombs on Japan, as we show, for no strategic reason at all. We dropped them to scare the Russians.
But the trap here,
and because we have the bomb, that gives us the right to do what we want.
But the trap here is that Argo, Zero, Dark 30, and so on and so forth, these are films then that tell history from another narrative, also dramatic, but not accurate.
Argo and Dark 030 tell the history from an American interest point of view. That is the history version of America. That's what we get in schools. That's why kids don't study history, because it's boring. It's too sanitized. America is always the good guy.
So you don't
know
think
what? My history is a horror film. It's like Saw, and I think it's much juicier.
So you don't think there's an essential problem in drama telling history?
I think you should tell history with as much drama as you can. I had history professors when I was young, and those who were dramatic and made it interesting, I listened. Now, I didn't know, sometimes they didn't tell me the good stuff. They were giving me misinformation. But that's up to you to figure it out and do some research. Never believe one movie, never believe one historian. Go and read about another version of it. I'm not the historian, I'm a dramatist. My co-author is a real historian. He's done 30 years of this, 40 years. He has studied with all the revisionist historians. He knows that generation. So this is considered history of many different sources, people who have rewritten the Cold War.
That's the untold history you're talking about now.
Yeah, but this is history that's out there, it's in college. But we have to bring it to the masses, we have to bring it to the high school level.
And you're certainly doing a good job at that.
Thank you.